Is Paige Bueckers already better than Caitlin Clark? You're on the Hoops Cap.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions. Let's go.
Welcome to the Hoops Cap Pod. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto. With me, as always, on Friday is T. Baker. Let's get his microphone unmuted. T, let's be real. The debate is already happening, and most people haven't just really caught on yet. While Caitlin Clark is snagging every headline, you see her in Gatorade commercials, maybe top 10 highlights, in all of the national spotlight when it comes to ESPN and other places. Paige is quietly, methodically making her own case. And for us, and for me in particular, it's a strong one. We're talking about essentially a shift happening right now underneath the noses of casual basketball fans. And it's a conversation about who's really the best. And today we're going to show everyone why that conversation needs to happen right now. Welcome in T. Baker. He is a Big East beat reporter for the Next and also the host of Built to Ball here on the Big East Energy Network. All right. Caitlin Clark arrived in 2024. Major, coup for the WNBA to have this, from ticket sales to viewership, media coverage, all of it was just off the charts. Paige didn't come until this year. So the question to you, T, right from the jump, is exactly what I asked on that cold open. Is Paige Bueckers already a better basketball player than Caitlin Clark?
Oh, I love it. You always ask me the right direct questions, and I'm like, how can I? Here's the thing. I always have thought Paige Bueckers has been the more rounded basketball player throughout college as well. And so I think that it's beneficial for me. And, someone's I'll get at least 10 comments about, how I'm a Caitlin Clark hater here, because it's difficult to speak against Caitlin Clark. But if you honestly look at the numbers, if you look at sort of efficiency, ways that someone contributes on the floor, Paige Bueckers to me is the more well-rounded basketball player. And to me, that signals that she's the better basketball player, that she's the one who has that innate skill set that, of course, Caitlin Clark has. But I think what differentiates Paige for me is the ways that she can score all over the court, but also her defensive intensity. I think she's a better two-way player than Caitlin Clark. Caitlin isn't really known for her defensive intensity. So, if you think about well-rounded two-way player, I'm going Paige all day.
Yeah, and let's get into it. The first round of this, essentially, we're doing this kind of almost like a boxing analogy. Round one is the offensive battle. What is it about Paige? Because her numbers are similar. If you do like a back and forth analysis, right? The head-to-head is really close from a points per game. Caitlin has a more rebounding edge and assists just from like a stat compilation. But when you look at the efficiency aspect of it, it really is a no-brainer that Paige is the more rounded player, to your point. So offensively, what if you had to break it down, what is it about Paige that makes her a more efficient player than Caitlin?
Well, I think it's the shots that she takes. I think Caitlin Clark, it's also, it's a world of analytics. If Caitlin Clark shoots more threes, then ultimately she makes more threes, but she shoots a lot more threes, a lot more baskets than Paige Bueckers, and you just miss more when you take more, right? So I think that's part of it. But also with Paige, I think it's a unique ability to get shots in different parts of the court. I think that we see really skilled driving to the basket from Caitlin Clark, but we don't see much of a mid-range game from Caitlin. And I think that's where Paige really shines, honestly, is in that mid-range game. And over time, we've seen her sort of back up a little bit from the 3-point line, take some further shots. But I think it's just Paige's abilities off the screen, her ability to cut to the basket, the different ways that she can score, I think are what make her efficient, because she's never going to take a bad shot. I think that's what's part of her basketball IQ, but also part of her coaching under Gino Auriemma and part of her just natural innate basketball ability. She just has a feel for the best shot on the court at any given moment.
Yeah, I think if you look at like from a volume scoring perspective, if we just numbers wise, Caitlin averaged 19.2 points per game her rookie season, 8.5 assists, 5.7 rebounds. Looking at that in a vacuum, they're fantastic. Paige's numbers right now, 18.3 points, 5.5 assists, and 4 rebounds. But the story flips when we talk about efficiency, right? Clark shot 41% from the field and turned it over almost 6 times a game, 5.6 times a game. Whereas Paige has an incredible streak right now of not turning the ball over, I think, for like 3 or 4 straight games leading into tonight's game of Indiana versus Dallas. And Paige is averaging 18.3 points on 45% with just 2 turnovers. So if you want just pure volume, and this is kind of a weird analysis because Paige always talks about Kobe. If you want that Mamba, volume shooting, or Steph Curry, you're going with Caitlin Clark. But if you do want that, well-rounded, efficient game, you're talking Paige. So is that kind of like a split decision, or do you think it goes to Paige just off of efficiency? Because I think you can argue that Caitlin is the better offensive player from a scoring perspective.
I think it depends on what you need on your team and what you're looking for. If you need, like someone who is able to put up fast numbers and like not worry too much about every possession being a possession that ends in a basket. Like I think Caitlin Clark's the player you pick. I think that when I think about comparisons, maybe to some UConn greats, I might say Paige Bueckers is more like a Maya Moore in her ability to find the basket in so many different ways. Her defensive intensity, really just being an excellent two-way player. And someone like Caitlin Clark might be more like Diana Taurasi, who towards the end of her career didn't play a lot of defense, never was a shining defensive player, but was an incredible offensive player and has this sort of like momentum swing ability that I think Caitlin Clark also has. So it's really about what you need. You can't go wrong with either player, let's be honest. But for me, it's like I'm the type of person who really values efficiency, who really values making the most of every possession, and turnovers drive me crazy. So that piece of Caitlin Clark's game, like that's another record she broke last year, most turnovers, and she eclipsed it by a significant margin, right? So she was turning the ball over a significant amount, and over time, those things add up. And what do you want at the end of the game? Someone who's committing the most turnovers over the league, or someone who rarely commits them, right?
No, I agree there. I think when we talk about getting to the next subject of the eye test, I think that's where it gets really interesting, because then it's just about styles, right? So we're going to take a very, very short break, and before we do so, did Gino Auriemma call Paige Bueckers or Caitlin Clark the best player ever? I mean, you were there at the press conference.
So I love her. I think she's the best player. Forget I ever said Paige is the best player in the country. I think she's the best player of all time.
We're going to get T's reaction from that coming up after the break. All right, T, you were there. Gino said Caitlin Clark was the best player ever. Was he being sarcastic, or what were your thoughts?
Oh, yes, he was being sarcastic. This was after the second round game in 2024 against Syracuse, where Paige put up like 32 points, I think 10 rebounds. I was just looking at the stat line. I think that it was a tongue-in-cheek. Sorry, it was 32 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals in that 8-point win over Syracuse to get to the Sweet 16. So she really took over that game, and it was a game that was actually very close in that it looked like UConn could blow at the end, but Paige didn't let it happen. I think Gino made that tongue-in-cheek comment because there was sort of this culture at the time of you couldn't say anything that could be perceived as a critique of Caitlin Clark. So he was kind of like, I got to say it, she's the best player, Yep. But he had previously made the case that Paige Bueckers was the best player, and he has a good case there. So it was just a sort of him saying, like, did y'all see what she just did on the court? But we're still not saying she's the best.
No, I totally, I know Gino's sarcasm. I totally understand where he was coming from. So back to this kind of Caitlin versus Paige from a stylistic perspective. Look, I have no issues with Caitlin Clark. I think she is a phenomenal player. I think she reminds a lot of casual basketball fans that haven't watched a lot of women's basketball and are more on the men's side to like a Steph Curry, or the way the NBA is played, where you're shooting a ton of threes. We've talked about this on the show that the women's game is almost mirrors what the men's game used to be, with a lot more mid-range, a little more variety versus just a three-point fest. And unfortunately, the NBA has gone to kind of this analytic style where threes and basically dunks are what you get, right? And so Caitlin is that version of what the NBA is. So I think that's also part of why she's so popular, is that because as you watch some of the clips that we've been playing in the background, Paige has the ability to take step back threes, logo threes. It's just not really her part. She wants to play, and I'm going to get heat for this too. Paige wants to play the game, I'm going to put it in quotes, the right way, right? And that's getting other teammates involved. That's lethal mid-range game, having perfect fundamentals. But Caitlin is more like, a jazz artist where it's like on the fly. I'm just going to shoot wherever I want. Tell me why, if you think I'm on par here, or do you think it's something more as to why Caitlin is more popular of the masses than Paige?
Well, the only other thing I'll add to what you said is like Caitlin Clark is also an elite passer and playmaker.
Absolutely.
So we also have to give her that piece, right? Like she's elite offensively, not just for her shooting ability, but for also her ability to get others involved. I think that Caitlin Clark's game is just a little more flashy. It's like, it's about the logo three. It's about no look passes or cross court passes. Like, I think it's an incredibly entertaining style of basketball, and it's an emotional style of basketball. It's a momentum shifting style of basketball. Like, it's about sort of like Caitlin Clark can take over a game in 2 minutes, right? She can hit three pointers from the logo and the game over, So there's a entertainment value, a performance value to it. And I think with Paige, like her game's just less flashy. It's more fundamentals. Like you said, it's more about efficiency. It's more about slowly chipping away at teams with your talent rather than, taking over a game oneself. So, I think that it's really, like you said, it's a stylistic difference, and both are incredibly entertaining, and both are players who change their franchises for good.
Yeah, and also like to your point, and that's totally fair. But Paige has this in her bag, and I'm going to play a clip, and we're going to talk over it. But the idea that Paige, and this, you didn't say this, but the idea that some people think that Caitlin is a better playmaker is a joke. I mean, if Caitlin wanted to. If Paige wanted to do this every night and essentially ISO people and take them off the dribble and make them look silly, she could, because she just did it here in a game just last week, and it was all over the internet. And that's part of who she is. Like she has all of the flash. She easily, if we go back to a clip from this era, I think I had it here. Let's add to the stage. Of different highlights of Paige, there's a cut where she goes backdoor and makes, there it is, that little pump fake. Like these are incredible, like athletic moves. And this is another one where she's essentially breaking someone down, loses her by like 10 feet and gets a wide open three. By the way, that's a more logo three than most people kind of expect from Paige. So she has the 3-point game. She has the ability to break you down off the dribble. And guess what? She's as good a passer as Caitlin Clark. So I do think eye test wise, if you're a casual fan, you may look at Caitlin and go, well, she's better. But if you're actually a student of the game and know basketball, I don't think it's even close, to be completely fair. I just don't. I think you could say that Caitlin Clark is a better scorer because she is, just, statistically. But I think the all-around player is there. And then on to the next round is defensively. Defensively, you mentioned it already. Caitlin Clark is, as the kids say, barbecue chicken. If you get her in an ISO situation, she just doesn't have that same lateral quickness as Paige. Do you agree?
I thought of that scene from Space Jam. I think it literally became a barbecue chicken playing defense. So I think that's true. I don't think anyone would argue that Caitlin Clark's strength is her defense, and she's not known for that whatsoever, where Paige is a really talented defender. I think I saw a stat recently. She's got like 2 steals a game alongside X number of points per game, which is also a WNBA record. So not just is she like a good defender, she's a very strong elite defender who can steal, who I've seen her give like 4 blocks in a game in college before, right? Like she can get up in the air, she can disrupt on the defensive end. So definitely without a competition, I think Paige Bueckers is the better defensive player.
Yeah, I don't even think we need to. There's not a ton of video to corroborate that. But if you watch any games, Caitlin gets beat backdoor, she gets beat off the dribble. Paige is a lot more defensively sound, and she has the athleticism, like you said, to block shots. She averages 1.8 steals per game. She's among the elites in the WNBA on the defensive side of the ball, whereas Caitlin is not. She becomes a target, and that's an issue when you're talking about trying to build a championship caliber team, right? But here's where the tide turns a little bit. Round 4 would be kind of off-court influencer and it factor. So I think a big win for Paige on defense, but pro sports isn't played in a vacuum. When we zoom out and look at the total impact of everything on the league, on the culture, on the business of basketball, we have to talk about how big Caitlin is to this league. She has 1,000%. There's a Caitlin Clark effect. And I think that in particular, UConn fans, if not women's basketball fans, I think they were kind of surprised that Paige didn't, like, Paige being with Dallas, they didn't sell out like their first game the way Caitlin did. Did you feel that, or am I off base there?
No, you're completely on base. Caitlin Clark is the more famous player, has household name recognition. I saw a clip on the internet the other day of Jeopardy where they showed a picture of Caitlin Clark and someone asked they showed a picture of Paige Bueckers.
Yep.
And they said, who is Caitlin Clark? So she just is the name. She transcends the sport. She's one of the most famous athletes in the world, right? Not even just in basketball or women's basketball. So it's just a different level of hype, a different level of attention that I think probably benefits Paige in some ways, because she doesn't have that microscope on her the way that Caitlin did her first year. And every single play wasn't analyzed and broken down as like, was this too hard of a foul? All that, like, she got to just kind of like live a little bit and play her game and adjust to the league. And Caitlin doesn't have that same luxury, frankly. And Paige, and don't get me wrong, Paige is a mega star, and she also doesn't get a lot of like alone time. Like, people are always asking for her autograph, but it's a different phenomenon, no doubt.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I'd like to kind of touch on, which is, we can talk about these players all day, but in the end, they're humans. They're human beings. They have feelings. They understand, like, that is part of why maybe there's kind of like a little bit of a dip in, obviously she's hurt right now, but Caitlin Clark's numbers and kind of the ability to kind of lead her team is partly because, I mean, you're coming into a league that didn't have all the eyeballs on it to begin with. And then all of a sudden now everybody's in it and they're all looking at you. They're not looking at the Atlanta Dream. They're not looking at the new team in Golden State with the Valkyries. Everything is about Caitlin Clark with the WNBA. And Paige is having a great season, but it's kind of flying under the radar because of that kind of shadow that Caitlin kind of casts. So do you think Paige benefits from that? And I wonder if you think that Paige will ever eclipse Caitlin in terms of stardom as the years go on.
I don't think that'll happen. But I think that it does benefit Paige. I think about it as like, I'm not an NBA fan. I'm a casual observer of the NBA, but the only player I know about is LeBron and what he did to lose a game or win a game. So he's the star of the, past generation. And I think Caitlin will be the star in the same way. So when she's got a good season, you're going to hear about it. When she's got a bad season, when she's got a bad game, you're going to hear about it. So I think that that's just the reality that Caitlin Clark lives in. And I think it's the reality she's going to live in. So what would I prefer? I would prefer the Paige treatment. Like, I don't want everyone critiquing every little thing I do on and off the court for the rest of my career. But, it's just a different level of fame and fandom around Caitlin Clark.
All right. And I don't disagree there. So we're at a conclusion here. Let's do a recap of what we talked about. So round 1, offense, kind of clash of styles, Clark's volume versus Paige's efficiency, right? I would consider that a draw, in my opinion, right? You can give me your scorecard here in a second, but round 2, the eye test, I think, Caitlin Clark is more of the, jazz musician, revolutionary, and Paige is a technician. I think that could be another draw, depending on styles, right? And round 3, defense, clear win for Paige. I mean, it's like a seismic difference, a chasm, if you will. And round 4, I think you got to give it to Caitlin Clark on the, maybe not a chasm, but she's definitely more famous. The Jeopardy line is the perfect example of a casual fan that knows nothing about sports, but they've heard of who Caitlin Clark is.
Yep.
So if you are a GM for your money and you need to win a game tonight, because guess what? They play tonight. Shocker. Who are you taking? Are you taking Caitlin Clark or are you taking Paige Bueckers?
Are you asking me to win a game tonight?
Just tonight. Boom. If they're both playing, they're both at the height of their powers. They all have the same, team around them, et cetera, et cetera. All things are equal, apples to apples. I don't even care who's home or away. Let's just say it's neutral site. Let's just pretend we're back in college. Who wins the game? Who do you want to win the game?
I'm going with Paige. I mean, I like the way that she plays. I think that her ability to blend with teammates is a little bit more natural sometimes, and I just think that she can do more things on the court. But if you're asking me who I pick as a GM for the long term, I got to go Caitlin Clark for the fame and the money and the and the things that professional sports teams need to operate. So it's a question of who's the better player versus who's the more marketable, profitable player, right? And that's the great, I guess, like legacy of professional sports in America. It kind of has played itself out across different leagues, and now we're seeing it in the WNBA.
No, I think you're spot on, because I think if you want to sell tickets, not that Paige doesn't, she's box office, but Caitlin Clark is like Avatar and from a movie perspective, and Paige is more like Goodfellas, where it's like a fantastically shot movie. It's as what's the meme? Cinema with Martin Scorsese. That's Paige. But if you want to watch a movie, you go to see Caitlin Clark. If you want to watch a film, you go see Paige Bueckers. So, as we know, most Americans would rather watch a movie and eat popcorn and just kind of veg out. And some people like to watch the film with Paige Bueckers. So, either way, I think it's a phenomenal debate, and I'm looking forward to the game tonight. If you have not already subscribed, please subscribe to the Hoops Cap. Go and look. We have T. Baker's show, Built to Ball, all on Big East women's basketball, and that's going to start to ramp up as we get closer to the season. Obviously, this is the Hoops Cap. Go sign on to anything that you see from Big East Energy Network. We'd love to have you guys. Thanks for watching, T. Thanks. Is there anything else you want to tell people where they can find things, in terms of your writing or anything like that?
Just check out Built to Ball, and if you're listening, it's Friday afternoon. You'll see me at tonight's Wicked game for the Connecticut Sun and the New York Liberty. So we love a Wicked theme, and I'll be catching y'all if you're at a regional basketball game tonight.
Fantastic. And shout out Morgan Tuck. She was on the show earlier this week, Connecticut Sun GM and former UConn standout. Thanks for watching. If you love WNBA debates, T and I typically will do some of this, and in particular, as long as there's a UConn angle. So tell us what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you guys as always. And if you like this hat, you can find it on bigenergythreads.com. Check it out. It'll be tagged in the in the show. We'll see you next time.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby.